I will tell you that just maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't know what the NRB was. I'd never heard of it before. Maybe many of you listening to this show don't know what the NRB is. Well, we're going to educate you about it because the guy who runs the whole darn thing is a friend of ours named Troy Miller, and he invited us a couple of years ago to come to it. The first one, I guess it was just last year, went to the Nashville event, and they move every year. This year it's in Dallas, and I had so much fun, and it was such an impactful visit in Nashville. I said, can we go back? And Troy said, of course, come down. And so now we're in Dallas for this. Now this is not it's my second one, but it's been going on for years now. The National Religious, formerly it was called Broadcasters, Troy. I don't know how you refer to it today. Media?
Communicators.
Yeah. National Religious Communicators now.
Yeah.
You have to change the B to a C.
We do.
Yeah. That's the amazing thing, by the way. He runs the whole thing. Troy Miller is the president of the National Religious Broadcasters. But that's, look, we've all been going through it. Anybody that's been around broadcasting for any amount of time knows the media landscape has shifted, and I've never seen, I don't know about you, but this has got to be the biggest consortium of, if you want, content producers in the world gathered here.
Yeah, it really is. This is the largest gathering of Christian content producers anywhere in the world, and I think we'd probably really argue we're probably one of the largest that meets here. So there was, we just broke a record. We have over 5,300 people here.
Wow.
By the end of the week, with people that will be rolling in at door, we probably will be over 5,600 or so.
Oh my gosh.
That are running around here. So it's the one time that all of these folks, whether you're a podcaster, a radio broadcaster, television, book publisher, filmmaker, you name it. If you're in communication, you're a church and you're just casting your service, you're here because you want to know what's going on in this industry and you want to know how to reach people for the gospel better than you did last year.
We were just talking about the Associated Press in court, tied up in court with the president because he's limited their access on Air Force One and the Oval Office. And I just made the point. I think gone are the days that we all need to get our news from the Associated Press, to your point.
Oh, absolutely. I think that this last election cycle, I think, showed that kind of erased that the mainstream legacy media. And look, Chris, not all of that is technology. A lot of that is their own fault.
Yes.
It really is their own fault. I mean, the propaganda, we call it the AP, we call them the American Propaganda House, right?
Yes.
They're not really press anymore. We've lost journalism in the legacy media area. And people now have access to podcasts and streams. They can get you over the Salem Radio Network, or they can get you live streaming, and that's really opened up the doors and taken that role away from those legacy gatekeepers. What
does the NRB, when you focus specifically, obviously the core word in it, religious broadcasters, people of different faiths, it's not, interestingly, people should note, it's not exclusively Christians that attend, right? There are some folks of the Jewish faith, I know. That's right. There are some folks of the Jewish faith that attend as well. We have our Catholic brothers and sisters are here as well that attend. And we have a lot of conservative media here because conservative media has found a real home, and they have a real affinity for their Christian audience. Yes. So. I will tell you that in my personal life in the last few years doing this show, embracing faith, I have realized, is something the audience desperately wants, and I stupidly for years tried to hide under a basket, so to speak. And I regret it that I spent a number of years on the air thinking that the best way to appeal to a broad swath is to not talk about my own faith and my own testimony. Actually, just the opposite. Yeah, it really is. And last night at our opening session, we released some research data we did with the Barna Group, and it really kind of blew us away. And one of the things that came out of that group, so we wanted to know who consumes religious media and what do they think about it. 62%, almost two-thirds of Americans that responded, consume some sort of Christian media at some time within the month. And now, how might you identify that? That's a stunning number. 63% of Americans consume some sort of faith-based media in the course of a month, did you say? Yeah, I think it was in the course of a month, over the month. So sometime they're tuning in and listening. So that could be a podcast? That could be a podcast, that could be a radio program, that could be television, that could be streaming. And we specifically asked, not your pastor's sermon. Yes. So not just your pastor's sermon. Are you consuming something else? It could be going to a Christian film. All of those were in there. And the other amazing thing about it was that the number of people that said when they were looking for Christian media,
media, it wasn't just that they were trying to avoid secular media, although that was pretty high. It was that they were actually looking, especially amongst younger adults, they were looking for something that was going to be positive, encouraging, and give them hope.
Oh my gosh, this coincides beautifully with what we know about the national politic right now. I can't speak to young women. I'm fascinated with the stat, though, maybe because it's personal to my house. I have a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old son, both of whom voted for the first time, both of whom voted for Trump, not at my goading or encouragement. They just did, and I noticed as they were coming up and they were getting ready to vote for the first time, they were tending and trending more conservative. Again, it's not just because Dad is. I don't really talk much about politics with them. They have attended worship with us and things like that. But what I noticed amongst young men, Troy, was this desperate need to get back to basics. They want truth. They want things in black and white. They're tired of this notion that men can be women and women can be men, and if you're born a male, you're inherently a bad guy. Young men are trending more conservative and more faithful in Christianity, as I understand it.
Yeah, which goes with some other trends that we've seen, that young men now are the highest demographic that are returning to churches. So that demographic of young men going to churches would correlate with that as well. And again, look, society for so long has beat them down.
Yes.
Look, just be honest, I have two sons as well. They're in their one's 30 and 29, but society has for so long beat them down and told them they couldn't be who they are.
Yes.
And they figured out as they got through, especially you get through your 20s, guess what? That's just not true.
Yes.
They've been lied to, they've been manipulated, and like you said, there's a real pushback.
This is maybe a deeper theological question than you're prepared to answer as president of the National Religious Broadcasters, but I've been intrigued with how churches, and you guys are putting on conferences here. This is not just a gathering of media talking to one another. You guys put on breakout sessions. I'm privileged to be a part of a session today, as a matter of fact, talking about the family. But you had a whole seminar yesterday devoted to AI and how AI can be incorporated into people's ministries and things like that. Talk a little about that, because I think some churches probably are pretty nervous about it.
Yeah, well, look, every technology that's come around since the bow and arrow has been used for good and for evil, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things we do here is really talk about, and it's a lot of my tech background too. So tech is, we talk about the innovation that's going on in the industry, and AI is a big innovation, and it's going to be there whether we're nervous about it or not. And look, as a Christian, we know that God controls every domain. Every single domain that's out there, God controls. So there's a lot that AI can do for the church. There's a lot it can do for even local ministries. But let me tell you about one cool project. There's an AI group. I was at a seminar last summer with a group. They're finished their language model. In the next 2 to 3 years, we'll have the Bible translated in every spoken language on the planet.
Wow.
Every spoken language. Remember, Jesus said, take the gospel to all the nations. We live in the greatest time for communicators, the greatest time. There's been no time in history where the device in your pocket can instantly connect you to anybody around the world at any time.
So in your point of view, I mean, I share it, I think, and this is probably what you'd have people know, is you don't have to necessarily be afraid of AI. It can be wicked and awfully dangerous, but you can use it as a tool.
Oh, yeah, and it's like any other tool. It's the people behind it. So I would rather see pastors and Bible teachers and professors and communicators using AI behind AI than some other secular leftist out there behind it just pushing out their propaganda.
My wife and I were just talking about this at dinner, AI specifically, talking about writing books, preparing speeches, remarks. From time to time a group will come ask me to speak, or maybe I need to write a column. I know AI can spit it out. I don't know if you guys have talked much about this, the ethics of it all. I honestly, I feel guilty when I think about the prospect of saying, write a 10-minute speech for me, AI, and it would. Now, maybe it wouldn't be great, but Where do you come down on that? And by the way, let's throw sermons in there for pastors, huh?
Well, that's a big one that people are talking about and struggling with, because if AI is your sermon generator, then what does that say about you as a pastor? How much time are you spending in the Word? How much time are you studying? Or are you just somebody that's giving up and giving a speech that somebody else wrote?
Yes.
And the other thing about it, so we're working on that side of the ethics of it, but also there's the intellectual property side of all of this. So let's just take, for example, what if somebody takes last night, Jack Hibbs gave the opening session, pastor out of California. What if somebody, takes all of his sermons and then starts kicking out Jack Hibbs, but they tweak the AI so it has a little bit of leftist view or liberal view of the scriptures,
Yes.
So how does that work, and how does that come into, and what, the information that these AI engines are taking from is really important.
It's an amazing discussion, and I'm so glad that you're tackling it. That's the thing. You guys have always got to be sort of a little, every year you gather, I suppose there's a new something. There's a new arrow in the quiver, to go off of the analogy you used off the top here, that you guys have got to be in front of.
That's right. There's something new coming out. It seems like technology is moving at light speed, and sometimes it may be moving faster than we can even figure out how it really should be applied. I always like the line from Jurassic Park. You guys were so busy trying to figure out whether you could do it, you never stopped to think about whether you should do it.
Strong. Troy Miller, if people have not come to the NRB before and they're listening, why should they? Is this purely for people that are in the business of communicating, or is this for people that consume it too?
No, this is for both sides. Not only people that are in the business, and there's a lot of folks here. And look, hey, if you come in and you're an audience listener, you're probably going to meet or see one of your favorite personalities on conservative or Christian radio. But also for the people who are out there. Last night we talked about another stat. The average social media user reaches over 480 people. 480 people.
Wow.
The average church in America has 150. So you have a chance to influence a lot of people in your circle. And you want to know how to do that better? We can tell you.
Troy, I spoke to a group of students the other day. I said, you guys have never been in a luckier spot. When I was your age, I had to make it onto a radio station or a television station. You guys have got the world in your pocket.
That's right.
You can make a show right now. That's what they do here at the NRB. Troy, you've been a great friend, and I'm so appreciative that you introduced me to this. And now it's someplace I want to be every single year, so thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Troy Miller, president of the NRB. You can follow them, by the way, at NRB CEO.